A few days back, the West African nation of Mali had called on the United Nations to withdraw its peacekeeping mission from the country without delay, denouncing its failure to respond to security challenges. The country's military rulers have increasingly imposed operational restrictions on peacekeepers, and they have also broken Mali's long-standing alliance with former colonial power France. So what would the withdrawal of UN forces mean for Mali? Would it revive separatist feelings, or would it actually be of any help on the ground? Mali's demand may bring a sudden end to a decade-long mission that has struggled to protect civilians and its own troops, raising fears that the country could slide deeper into chaos amid an Islamist insurgency and the possible revival of a separatist uprising. The UN mission, known as MINUSMA, has been hobbled by restrictions on its air and ground operations since Mali's ruling junta joined forces with Russian military contractor Wagner Group in 2021, limiting its effectiveness against an Islamist insurgency that took root a decade ago and has since spread across West Africa. Despite the restrictions, MINUSMA's 13,000 strong force has held the line in northern cities including Gao and Timbuktu that are surrounded by militants. It patrols camps for displaced people which come under frequent attack and provides medical evacuations for Mali's under-equipped army. And it has also helped to placate Tuareg-led rebels in northern Mali who halted the separatist uprising with the 2015 Algiers Accord. It is still unclear how quickly UN troops could leave following Mali's request, but if and when they do, Bamako will be alone with about 1,000 Wagner soldiers to battle the militants linked to Islamic State and Al-Qaeda who have killed thousands of civilians and soldiers and control large swathes of the country's desert north and center. Relations between the UN and Mali's junta, which consolidated power in two coups in 2020 and 2021, have frayed for years. Bamako wanted MINUSMA to become a more active fighting force to counter the Islamist threat, which the UN said was not a part of its mission. UN officials, meanwhile, have been pushing for greater freedoms to protect civilians and investigate rights abuses by militants, the army, and more recently, the Russian-affiliated Wagner Group. Ties had reached breaking point last month when UN investigators released a report accusing the army and armed white men of massacring 500 people in the town of Maura. Mali, Russia, and Wagner deny wrongdoing in Maura or targeting civilians anywhere in Mali. The UN has repeatedly said that the constraints imposed by the junta have stopped it from fulfilling its mission. Mali frequently denied or delayed permission for MINUSMA to move in combat zones, it said, making it less able to respond to civilians under attack or swiftly probe abuses. MINUSMA was launched in 2013 after the separatist rebels and Al-Qaeda-linked insurgents had occupied northern Mali. French troops had forced the militants to retreat, but then they bounced back. More than 170 peacekeepers have died in fighting, making MINUSMA the United Nations' deadliest combat mission. Restrictions in MINUSMA's movements have meant that the mission has become more focused in recent years on protecting itself. As a result, MINUSMA has struggled to counter a tide of anti-UN posts online, losing the battle for public opinion in Mali. 90% of troop operations are focused on securing its own bases and defending peacekeepers. Violence has even spread into neighboring Burkina Faso and Niger, creating one of the world's fastest growing humanitarian crises. UN Council will vote on 29th of June on whether to extend the mandate of the mission in the country. And nothing can be said with absolute certainty what will happen after UN forces withdrawal from the country. Maybe the country will be indeed controlled by the Wagner Group, or maybe it will fall prey to Islamic extremist organizations.
Subscribe to Oneindia channel and never miss an update.